Hey everybody, it's Rockula, and welcome back to Rockula Retrospective. This is a review of Season 5, Episode 14 of The Walking Dead, titled Spend. Okay, so this is going to be a wrap-up for the weekend. So you can kind of connect all the dots and tie up all the loose ends before you watch Sunday night's episode. And what I did is I went and checked out the reviewer community and all the comments on everybody's pages. And I'm kind of bringing the consensus about what people are thinking about this past episode. Two major, by the way, got a new haircut. This is as short as my hair has ever been. And, it's still kind of figuring out where it wants to go. But there are two big issues that are at stake in this episode, and I did reviews on each of them separately. And the first one is about Gabriel. Now, he has proven not only to be a coward in deed, but he is a coward all the way down to his heart. And you can watch that review here. Then the second situation is with Deanna and her decision that she's going to make after she reacts to Aiden's death. And we'll see what happens with Nicholas and whether he tells the correct side of the story. But, I'm going to go with that. You can watch those there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to not so much do a chronological recap as I'm going to try to concentrate on each person or grouping of people. And when we talk about groupings of people, we're coming to the first situation, which is the supply run and, the 900-pound gorilla in the room, which is Noah's death. Now, right away, I was not really that upset over Noah's death, but I understand why a lot of people were, because they got really attached to Noah. He seemed to still have some kind of innocence about him. I mean, he proved that, when he's got a good foot, he can defend himself with the rest of them, but he still had that thing in his heart where he's like, I don't want to be out there killing walkers. I want to be in here building stuff. So here's the other thing. Do you think that Noah's death is the most gruesome so far? The only one that I can remember that was any more gruesome than that was Dale's death when he got ripped apart. And then there's always the standard, the most gruesome zombie death that most people can think of is the guy from Day of the Dead who got pulled apart and then he was like screaming choke on him. I'm not going to put that video up here, but if you want to watch one of the most gruesome zombie deaths ever, I'm going to put the link up here, and I'm telling you, that's one of the most gruesome zombie deaths of all time. But yeah, tell me if you think that Noah's death was the most gruesome, or, if Dale's was, or who else had the most gruesome death. To skip around a little bit, we're on the supply run, and Aiden has realized that he has a lot to learn from Glenn, and he's becoming less of a douche every minute. But, here we go. We got to come up to the common sense moment of the episode, and that goes to Glenn. Because they see all of these walkers trapped behind a chain link fence cage. Why don't you just take some time and, spike as many as you can, because if you let them live, or, if you let them stay alive, whatever, they're going to come out and get you at some point, and of course it does. A lot of people didn't understand what caused the explosion that threw Aiden up against the wall and impaled him, but it was that the zombie, the walker that had a riot gear on, had some grenades on his vest, and Aiden's gunfire set that off. When we realize that Aiden's alive, we start to see a pattern with the Alexandrians in that they leave people behind in order to save themselves. Nicholas finally gives up on Aiden, and he's like, you left them, we both did. And that's who we are. And then Aiden confesses the truth, and then they gotta scram because they get out just as the walkers are coming in. Now I understand trying to get out of the way, but if you're back a little ways and you've got one, it takes one shot. Pew! Put Aiden out of his misery because one, he's going to have to go through all the pain of being chomped upon, and two, he's going to come back as a walker. So I just don't understand why they didn't, put him out of his misery. But Eugene finally nuts up. And if you're a regular viewer over here at Rockula Retrospective, it's no secret. I love Eugene. I'm a big Eugene fan. In fact, my middle name is Eugene. I just realized that the other day. I'm like, wait a second, that's why I like him so much. That's my middle name. So, he's been my favorite character since he was introduced into the series, and I'm glad that he's finally pulling his weight. Speaking of Eugene, the guy that came into the story with Eugene is Abraham, and he's with the construction crew that gets attacked. And once again, the Alexandrians show that they will try to save themselves and not risk their life to save others. And a little addendum to the thing that Gabriel said, and I just realized this, I wish I'd have put it in that other review, but Gabriel said that one day they will put their lives before all of yours. And yeah, if you turn out to be weak and not deserving of living, those people in Rick's group will put their lives before yours. But they just showed just now, like Abraham, that they will put their life in front of, they'll risk their life for someone who they think is deserving of being saved. So I think that also is something that's going to influence Deanna's decision, because she hears, and here's a good transition. She sees that Tobin comes in and is like, I'm not a leader compared to Abraham. You need to remove me as the leader of the construction crew, and you need to install Abraham. And the only thing that makes me uneasy, only because it's The Walking Dead, and this is a TV show that manipulates you with stuff, when Tobin says, I know you won't regret it, in Walking Dead world, that means Deanna's going to regret it. Let's get to Carol. She doesn't have the control over Sam that she might have thought that she did. I thought she had a lot of control over him, but, evidently fear is not keeping that kid in line. And do you think she made a mistake by having him steal more chocolate? I mean, somebody's going to see that chocolate's gone. But the other thing is, I don't understand why Carol is being so mean to Sam. The only two things that I can think of is, one, it's a plan for her to intimidate Sam and keep him in line with fear. Or, number two is she trying to not get attached to Sam? Because, let's face it, every time she gets attached to a child in this series, it dies. Other than Judith, every child that comes along, she has to see it die. Transitioning from Carol to Rick, we see Rick talking about his broken window theory. And it says, when you keep windows intact, you keep society intact. Now, I believe how this applies to the new Alexandria situation is, no, it's just an owl, that's true. But if that's never happened and that's a really unusual piece of behavior that somebody is exhibiting, you got to keep an eye on it, because that type of behavior in the old world was just obnoxious and creepy, but that kind of behavior in this world is going to end up getting somebody killed. But then later we find out that Sam wrecked the owl, and it's leading back to this whole thing again with Carol and Rick. But, we'll put that on hold for just a second, and we'll talk about Pete trying to make friends with Rick. He's making things worse with his drunken behavior. And when I saw the previews, I thought, well, what if Pete's just a drunk? And it turns out that he is a drunk, but, he's not a fall-down sloppy drunk, but he's still a liability. And then my whole theory of is Pete just a dumb drunk goes out the window, because Carol puts two and two together and tells Rick that she thinks Pete is abusing his family. If anybody would know, it's Carol about who's getting abused and all the patterns of abuse. But then she's like, "You're going to have to kill him." And I'm like, huh? Is she trying to manipulate Rick? Because let's face it, in Rick's present state, probably doesn't need a lot of convincing. Okay, that's the quick wrap-up of the episode and things that I saw people asking questions about. If you think I missed something, please talk about it in the comments, and I'll try to give you my opinion on it. If you want to give an opinion on something that I said that you think is completely wrong, please tell me that I'm wrong. I love it when I'm wrong, because I love this show because it's always wrong. Speaking of always wrong, my next episode that I'm going to post right after this one is going to be You Can't Trust the Teasers. But then Sunday night, I'll be back with my live reaction review. Well, live, it's going to be taped live and then edited, but it'll be my reaction review of episode 16 of The Walking Dead, titled Try. I'm Rockula, and this is Rockula Retrospective.